I think there was a belief by many, myself included, and I know I'd referenced this before the season, that the San Francisco 49ers could go down one of two paths in 2014. Either A, with all of their experience, especially in terms of getting to three straight conference championship games, a Super Bowl appearance mixed in, that this was a team with a lot of the pieces in place with that winning experience that would be able to piece everything together and finally get over the hump. Then the flip side of that, there were the elements of Jim Harbaugh and his tenuous coaching situation, knowing that this was probably going to be his last year, a team that is somewhat aging, that is drafted poorly in recent years, that could be, along with some distractions in terms of some of the players, off the field stuff, injuries, what have you, and other teams getting better in that division and conference, that the San Francisco 49ers could be due for a bit of an implosion in 2014. You know, I could really see B coming, and unfortunately, I thought it was going to be more of A, and I really still can't figure out why I didn't go with B. I don't know. They were Super Bowl picked by many, myself included. Well, the 49ers most certainly disappointed in 2014, that's for sure. Their 8-8 record bears it out. No surprise to anybody. As soon as that last game against Arizona was over, Jim Harbaugh is gone and off to Ann Arbor he goes, and now the 49ers are left wondering where they're going to go from here. And what we need to really figure out first is why 2014 was really such a disaster. And, it's not like they were the worst team in the league, but that 8-8 record, I don't even think is truly an indication of just how bad this team was in 2014 and just how many things went wrong. You got to start off on the offensive end. You have an offensive minded head coach like Jim Harbaugh, who's supposed to be this offensive genius, and his offense fucking sucked. Colin Kaepernick didn't develop. He's in his fourth year in the NFL, his third year as a starter. He was supposed to progress and grow under Harbaugh in 2014, and it didn't happen. He most certainly didn't grow. He didn't progress at all. In fact, he regressed, I think, significantly. You had Vernon Davis due to maybe age and injuries, losing a step, whatever. He didn't show up at any point in time in 2014. The offense in general, because of Kaepernick's poor play, Davis not showing up, the type of players they have outside of wide receiver, some injuries on the offensive line, that offense really lacked the explosiveness that they needed. And it showed all year long. And you look at them defensively, they had injuries. You had Navarro Bowman out all season. You missed Patrick Willis for a period of time. You had Aldon Smith out due to suspension. It was a rough situation all around. You have this new stadium, and you think that that's going to build all types of positive momentum for you, but then you go 4-4 at home in your first year in that new stadium. You finish 2-4 in the NFC West. You lose to teams like the Chicago Bears and the St. Louis Rams and the Oakland fucking Raiders of all teams. And even when you look at 8-8, you're like, well, that's not that bad. You look at those bad losses to the Bears, Rams, and especially the Raiders, and even you look at some of the other games they did win. They were fortunate to win some of the games that they did. They barely beat New Orleans, they barely beat the Giants, and they barely beat freaking Washington. All teams that are picking above them in the 2015 NFL Draft. So if one or two or three of those games would have went differently, we could be talking about a 5-11, 6-10, or 7-9 49ers team. The reality of the situation is that this team won some games that they did in 2014 because of experience, because of continuity, because of understanding how to win games, but it wasn't a reflection of the quality of play of the team or the direction of the team currently. This is not a good football team. In 2014, I think kind of showed that. And again, I had referenced it earlier. Part of the reason for that was because of the recent failures in the NFL draft. People could talk about Harbaugh and talk about that front office and the great job they did establishing and building a contending team. But the fact of the matter is this team is not as young as a lot of people think and not as loaded with talent in so many places as you may have been led to believe. And the recent draft history indicates that things might not get better right away. The 2011 draft, the first one, I believe, with Balky and Jim Harbaugh in place. You got Colin Kaepernick and Aldon Smith and then like Bruce Miller, and that was it. So one of your featured players out of that class was your fullback. The other one is your second-round quarterback who regressed mightily in his fourth season in the league, and Aldon Smith, your first-round pick from that draft, who missed half of the season due to suspension. The 2012 draft was a total wash and basically gave them nothing. The 2013 draft up to this point gave them a solid player in Eric Reed, the first-round pick safety out of LSU. And then that's about it. You got maybe Vance McDonald, but he's a role player at the very best as your second-round pick. And again, that was a second-round pick. A lot of gamble picks and a lot that didn't pan out. The 2014 draft looks to be a little bit better for them, but Jimmy Ward gave them really not a whole lot of anything coming out of NIU, their first round pick. And some other guys, contribute out of that 14 draft class, especially somebody like Carlos Hyde and especially Chris Borland. But, does that really make up for years of poor drafting? This is a team with 7 starters over the age of 30 in 2014 and getting older by the day. This is an old team that is drafted poorly, that doesn't have the depth on both sides of the ball that a lot of people believe it to have. There are holes all throughout the San Francisco 49ers roster, whether you want to take my word for it or not. So this is a very important offseason for the San Francisco 49ers. If they put together another solid offseason, in particular another solid draft, they could be right back in the mix in 2015 or especially in 2016. But if they don't, this is a team that could be heading south in a very, very big way very, very quickly. So what does this team need to do to get right this offseason for 2015? First and foremost, I think they have to find a coach who could provide that kind of calming, steady force. In some ways, he could be an anti-Harbaugh. I think sometimes that is important. That's not just a fan standpoint. I think that's important when you look at it from the business world. If you have one type of guy and one type of leader and his style worked for a period of time, but you eventually went away from it, there's a reason you went away from that. So you want to find a different type of personality, a guy who approaches things in a different way that can connect with his employees, his workers, in this case, his players, in a different way than the previous regime did. There's a reason you went away from that previous regime. So they need to find that more calm, steadying type of force. Will they? I guess ultimately only time will tell. I thought maybe they were going to go in the direction of just promoting the defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. I thought that's maybe the direction they should have gone. Somebody who could provide that kind of calming force that wouldn't bring a whole lot of turmoil and turbulence to that locker room. But again, time will tell. But I think that's incredibly important. They need to get somebody that's different from Harbaugh, a different type of personality, a different type of leader, and they could see some benefit out of that. And then they need to get to work on the offensive side of the ball, especially the skill position players. I've seen people talk about how much skill they have with the skill position players, and I say, what the fuck are you talking about? Crabtree's never been what he was supposed to be coming out of Texas Tech. Anquan Boldin is a very, very good NFL wide receiver, but he's getting into his mid-30s now. How much longer can you comment for anything out of him? Vernon Davis was a nothing in 2014. One of the problems for the 49ers on the outside is that Vernon Davis was their only real speed threat. Everybody else was the same type of big physical number 2 type of profile wide receiver. They don't have that explosive down the field threat. They don't have that quick twitch type of athlete that can line up in the slot. They need those guys, and they don't have them. They need a big freak number 1 wide receiver with vertical speed, and they need a quick twitch slot athlete that can sit there and cause all types of mismatches and lineup concerns all over the field for opposing defenses. Then they need to get somebody else at tight end. Vernon Davis looked washed up and done to me in 2014. Even if he has a resurgent season in 2015, this 49ers offense was so bad and lacked so much explosiveness. Is it really against the rules, against the football laws of God to sit there and have another tight end that could do some of the things that Vernon Davis can? I don't really think so. But they have holes on the defensive side of the ball. I think their secondary is definitely a weakness for that unit, and has been for a period of time and continues to be so. They need to get better, especially at corner. They just flat out need better personnel there. And they especially need personnel on that defensive line. They released Ray McDonald. Justice Smith has retired, an area that the 49ers haven't done a very good job of addressing in recent years with young draft talent. It's now an even bigger concern, an even bigger area of weakness. And as a result, they must devote some type of resources in this 2015 NFL draft to getting some youth and depth along that defensive 3-man front. This is a 49ers team that if they have a good offseason, if they have a good draft, and they bring the right coach in place, there's still a lot of pieces to like. And this is still a team that could make some noise in the NFL and in the NFC West and the NFC as a conference as soon as 2015. But if they bring in the wrong coach and they can't right Colin Kaepernick, they don't give him some explosive weapons around him on offense, and they don't find some young depth in the secondary and on the defensive line for that 3-4 49ers defense, this is a team that will be lucky, and I mark my words again, lucky, to finish 8-8 next season.